Excellent. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world today, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live. We are delighted to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us. And we wanted to jump on today to talk to you very briefly about an opportunity. It's not often you will hear about procurement and tax, but we think this is something that's a huge missed opportunity for organizations. And we wanted to kind of unearth a few pieces that maybe will help you, particularly if you're sitting there, if you're in a procurement function, for example, you're sitting there thinking, how is this relevant to me? What can I actually do here? We want to kind of unpick a few ideas and a few truths and help you really understand a little bit better what you could be doing to work more effectively, to align across the organization, to really deliver some actual results. Sounds good, right, guys? And I'm delighted to be joined by Kristin Schwabenbauer, Global Partner Leader at Vertex. Hi, Kristin. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Good morning.
Good morning. Exactly. We'll welcome questions from you guys. If you're listening today and you have a particular question for Kristin you want to get across, do put that into the chat. We'll see how many of those we can get to, but I'm going to be a little bit greedy. I have a few that I want to put in front of Kristin while we've got some of her time here today. So Kristin, thank you very much. I think one of the things we should start with, for those who don't know, can you just tell us a little bit about who are Vertex? What do they do?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Good morning, good day, I should say, because we've got a global audience here. Thanks for taking the time. So I am Kristin Schwabenbauer. I've been at Vertex for over 20 years now. And Vertex has been in business for well over 40 years. We primarily focus on tax, global tax, US, EU, VAT, GST, you name it, tax and technology. So we like to kind of refer to ourselves fondly as the tax geeks. We love anything tax. Yeah, I mean, hey, why not? So that's primarily what we focus on, global solutions to help to calculate tax, remit tax, and make sure that you have that support. So that's Vertex in a nutshell.
Excellent. Nicely summed up. I guess the question is, a lot of people listening today, a lot of people in our network are procurement and supply chain professionals, but why should they be paying more attention to tax? I would argue, when I look at a lot of the vendor industry, when I look at a lot of the conversations that go on, that perhaps we're missing out on something here. What do you think? Why do you think should be a concern?
Yeah, it's awesome to be able to talk to procurement professionals. As you imagine, a tax technology company, we talk to a lot of tax folks. Of course, there are main, people and stakeholders that we want to keep happy and make their lives better, if you will, and make their work lives better, and IT professionals. But with procurement, there's been so many changes, and especially if you talk about COVID, and it's very much now seen as a strategic part of an organization and how they run their business, which is perfect. So you have all of these new platforms, not new, but they're increasing, like your Coupas, your Arebas, as well as purchasing functionality in your main ERP. So why tax? Well, it's key and critical when you're paying your vendors. It's key and critical in keeping good relationships with your vendors and your suppliers. And it's a huge risk if it's something that you're overlooking it from a corporate standpoint. You could really be opening yourself up and your company up to a lot of risk if you're not taking it into consideration, because the onus is really on the company to make sure that they're paying the correct VAT, or in the US, self-accruing when they need to, or being charged the right sales tax. So it's a big deal. I think that what I've seen a lot happen is that folks really now understand sales tax in the US and VAT on the customer side, because we live that, right?
Sure.
It, you pay for something from Amazon or Apple or whatever, and you live that day to day. So it's very easy to understand. There's third-party tax is very common in things like e-commerce, ERP, as well as point of sale systems and things like that. But it's a little bit different with the procurement platforms. And as they're evolving, all of a sudden this becomes a huge challenge, and it's also a huge risk. So that's kind of some of the things that why Vertex has been really reaching out to procurement professionals to say, hey guys, you need to partner with tax, partner often, partner early, make sure that you're working together, and just build that awareness, so that everyone, so people know that there are tools out there to help support their AP professionals, right?
Right.
I know with a lot of these procurement transformations, you're looking at things like, standardizing things and efficiencies and things and KPIs. Well, how about quality for tax as a KPI? How much does tax screw up your invoice payments? How many times do your AP professionals have to go then to tax to say, hey, are they charging us the right tax, or is this how we should be handling this, or what? And you know what? We need to empower people, and we need to give them the tools, and they're out there. So that's some of the reasons why we're so passionate about this and excited, because I think this is it's a whole new area where people and a whole new level of how we can help support procurement professionals and companies to be successful in this area.
Right. And I also want to ask you, I guess, why now? Why is this perhaps something that we need to be thinking about now? I mean, some people might argue they've got this far. Do they need to really think about this now? But one thing that you did say that jumped out to me to get ahead of it was you were mentioning about paying on time. We know from our network, that can be a real hold up to organizations that want to work with, for example, smaller suppliers. If they can't, if that system's slowed down, that's a real problem. That creates that risk. But I don't want to jump ahead of it too much. I mean, what do you think is aggravating the issue?
I think it's just an evolution. I think if you look at SaaS and cloud software, right, and you look at the how Ariba and Coupa and other companies like that have kind of come into their own, Tradeshift, GEP, iValuate, all of these companies, I think it has to happen from a partnership perspective, and to get that functionality. And they're still trying to build out their partner ecosystems. I think if you really look at things like you have your very mature SAP and Oracles, where it's just standard, and they have huge amounts of resources and things like that. And now all of a sudden people just take it kind of for granted that they're going to automatically have that. I know, so we've talked to some of our clients, even our mid-sized to larger clients, and they're saying, yep, we totally missed evaluating what tax functionality they might have, because there may be a combination. It might be, oh, we're using native functionality for VAT, but maybe we use third party for the US and Canada, or some kind of combination like that. So these tend to be, or do we have to do a whole custom integration? So imagine walking into an implementation and saying, oh, thinking you're going to have a pretty easy implementation, and then saying, oh, we've got to do a custom integration, or something like that. It really it's scary. It's so, I mean, there's a lot of different risks there. And I think that's just been part of us trying to kind of inform people and make sure, hey, just be aware, start having these conversations, whether it be with tax or be with, IT, to take this into consideration. So you put your best foot forward, because you kind of never know what you're going to get, and what kind of functionality you're really going to have behind the scenes.
Particularly, and you make this point that as we're looking at the digital transformations that a lot of organizations are undergoing, procurement is really, it's been digitalizing for a long time, but we're really seeing a kind of an uptick in terms of the uptake of some, quite exciting technologies. But if you don't have that in mind early on, what I hear you saying is that, you can go quite far down the path and then realize, if we had understood early on that we needed to have this integrated, we would have made different decisions. And I suppose that's what, people need to have in sight. I wanted to kind of press you a little bit on that of, again, some of this is going to be things that people listening, I think, would have been aware of, but maybe not acted upon. What mistakes do you think we're making? Where do you think perhaps we're going wrong as procurement professionals thinking about how to address tax and to make some of these decisions more effectively?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that folks are, when you take a look at a procurement transformation, you kind of put on the table, all right, this is how we're doing things now, but how do we want to do things in the future? And how do we break in? Where are the inefficiencies? Where are the trouble spots? Is everyone getting what they need from a corporate standpoint out of this transformation? So I think just getting in a room and sitting down, I mean, it's risky, because, and here's what I always go back to: tax touches everything. It's kind of just a normal way of life for everyone. There's really no way to get around it. But you're setting, by recognizing that, and recognizing that, hey, you can't expect a Coupa or an Ariba or anyone else in that group to really be able to do everything. So what else are we going to need on the side for go live, for a successful rollout, and then ongoing maintenance? and what might be phase two. So, I mean, and that's, I think, where we're seeing a big evolution is that, these partners that we have, these technology leaders are saying, oh, well, before they said, oh, no, we can do everything ourselves. And then they said, oh, no, we can't. Not to the extent that these large clients or even mid-sized clients need. And the fact of the matter is, with sales tax on the US side, that's pretty straightforward and easy. The requirements for global supplier indirect tax and procurement are huge and they're really complex. So you really need to take a step back and say, all right, where are we buying things? Where are they being shipped to? How are they being used? There's many more, we call them Vertex tax drivers. It's not just a straightforward, pass through percentage type of a tax. It's far, far more complex than that. So I question how companies can do this and meet all these requirements without something like a third party tax or other partners adding into their procurement platforms, right?
Can you talk a little bit more about that tax drivers thing? I think that's really interesting. And I just wondered whether, whether it's something that is kind of, I guess, in the toolkit, if you like, if people in procurement functions, they will have those in front of them, they'll understand it, or whether perhaps there is a bit of a kind of a perception issue. You guys need to sit down and really understand what are these tax drivers. Can you help expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think to kind of debunk this it's mysterious. This, I think, folks, what I see is people are, oh, we'll have somebody else deal with that. Like we
Right.
don't, because they don't understand it, right? So, and it's confusing. And honestly, I've been talking about this stuff for years and years and years, and there's things that I'm still learning. So it is complex. It's okay to not know. I think when people hear tax, they think withholding tax, or they think tax on the customer side, which is pretty straightforward, as I mentioned. They don't think, oh, are our vendors charging us the right tax, or how do we recover this VAT? Is it recoverable, and what are we going to do? There are accounting implications, pretty heavy accounting implications to all of these things too. So what Vertex looks at is, and what we're really good at, because we've been doing this for a long time, is, okay, what are you buying? Right? When are you buying it? Where is it being shipped? How is it being used? Is it getting moved? Things like that, complex situations like that all factor in. And then how do you need to get the money back to those vendors, especially when you look at Europe they're doing a lot of real time, transactions and things like that. So I think those are all really key factors. So I think what I say to folks is anybody can do the sales tax, and even VAT on the customer side. That's pretty straightforward. Not everybody can do this indirect tax and procurement. And then you have to think about it from this perspective. So that because of all these best of breed procurement platforms are coming up and becoming more and more prevalent and key, that they're acting like the main ERP system for procurement, which is really cool. You also have to factor in, are you still going to be doing purchasing out of your ERP? Are you, for some legal entities or some types of purchases, depending, and then how are you going to reconcile? How are you going to, make sure everything is accounted for in the GL? So it's not just, it's across the board of your whole technology stack of how you're going to address it.
Indeed. And I suppose there's the other piece that, as you mentioned, there's the procurement technology stack, but this is something that has to be cross-functional by its nature. I mean, as you say, you're going to be working with AP, you're going to be working with IT, I suppose. And I guess that's part of the challenge, is that, this is such a cross-functional piece. This reminds me of a lot of problems where procurement can't always lead, but has to have those conversations happen at a cross-functional level. And I suppose that's a bit of a challenge, isn't it? I mean, you guys work with a variety of customers, right? So you must see that organizations kind of really need to get it together in terms of being able to bring together the right stakeholders to talk about that internally and make those decisions across the business.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, and it's harder now with everyone being remote, right? But a lot of times what we'll see is there's a big system implementer, groups out there. There's the big four. They're oftentimes involved with these implementations and kickoffs. So you might have, an advisory group who has a Coupa practice or something like that at like a KPMG or a Deloitte or something.
Sure.
I think I would, don't be scared of raising your hand and saying, hey, I think we need to do this and we don't know a lot about it. Can you help? They all have tax advisory groups too. that can help and come in and talk. And the earlier that you bring all these people to the table, the better off you're going to be. You may not be able to solve everything and automate everything right out of the gate, but you can at least work to solution, right? And come up with solution and try to limit the amount of manual work that your folks are going to be, your AP professionals are going to have to take on. It's really about giving them the tools that they need to do their job successfully and efficiently, and making sure that they're happy, because you want to keep those, you need to do that as an employer. I think that's really important. If you don't have the right tools to do your job, that makes things challenging.
So then, if we want to give people a few things to think about and take away from today, I mean, you've highlighted how important it is to put your hand up and to be honest with the kind of situation that you're in. I suppose there's also that piece about having to learn more and understand more, which kind of goes hand in hand a little bit. You need to sort of understand the problem. But are there other pieces that you'd urge people to think? If you're listening and some of these challenges ring true to you, are there any steps you'd urge them to take?
I would, there's a lot of resources out there. If you go to Vertex's website, we have a podcast series called Tax Matters.
Can you tell us a bit more about that? Because I'm excited about having a podcast host on our LinkedIn stream. Go ahead.
Yeah, the tables have turned here, isn't that funny?
Right?
It's great. Given that this is how complex it is, we planned out a whole 14 episode podcast series that where we interview folks internationally. We have a lot of really good resources internationally, as well as domestically in the US. And we break down different topics. There's 14 episodes. That's season 1, and we're planning for season 2, if that tells you how complex and complicated this is. But they're 10 to 20 minutes, so they're really quick and easy, and you can listen to them as you're driving your kids to practice or cleaning the house or whatever. When you have some downtime, and really get yourself educated. You could also forward it along to people on your team, and then from them, we've put together, from that podcast series, we put together some good white papers and things like that, documents that can outline it. So, I think even, we've kind of done that for you. I mean, if you can forward that along or just take some time and educate yourself, I think that's going to really help, because then you're going to be able to start to advocate for yourself and your company. I think this is top of mind at the executive level. How are we going to make sure we remain compliant and limit the risk? And so, that's what our goal is to make sure that, we're helping and partnering with companies to help them do that and be successful. So I think education is probably one of the biggest things, and there are things out there. So.
And do you think, I mean, you said you've been doing this a long time. I guess my last question is, do you think we're doing this better? Do you think is the curve increasing? Are organizations improving at this? Or do you see that, progress has been hard to come by? Where do you think we are?
I think we're actually really early on, but
right.
Which is a little bit scary, but also kind of exciting. So I think what we need to do is more, we need to look at partnering. We definitely want to partner with our clients, but then also pulling in the Coupas and the Arebas and really trying to take a look at, hey, we're at a good starting point, but where else can we gain efficiencies? Where else can we help? What are we not thinking of? And kind of think outside the box and team and partner together to do that. So I'm excited that we might just be at the base level here, and we've got a lot, where we can go, especially when we talk about machine learning and AI and all those kinds of things. The sky's the limit, right? So let's partner together and let's figure it out. And at least in the immediate future, let's get your base needs, done, right? And check that box off. Once you get something like this implemented, it's in. And then the ROI is just phenomenal after, year 2 and then on. So I think we're just getting started, but I'm excited to see where this is going to go.
Exactly. And as you say, it's a case of get in early, right? They get the understanding, build this, have this in mind as you're building out other pieces. Yep. And I think I like the sentiment of the sky's the limit. We wanted to keep this brief, but I wouldn't want to skate over what Kristin was saying in terms of there are resources available to you. The Procurement Leaders Marketplace is hosting Vertex resources. We'd love you to come and have a look and see what they're talking about there. Don't miss the podcasts on the Vertex website. I think it'd be great to see some of you guys downloading that as well. And hopefully you've taken away something useful from today. We wanted to give you a real kind of quick overview, but hopefully there's been a few nuggets in there that have provoked you to go away and find out more. Kristin, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to have you here. Hopefully there's a return leg on a podcast one day. Looking forward to that. And hopefully people follow up a little bit more. I can see a link's been posted in the chat there. So do take a look and see if we can entice you to learn a little bit more about this topic. Thanks very much, everybody. It's been wonderful having you here, and please do join us again next time.
Thanks, Steve.